Mr. Johnson of Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Professor Murray, well, I'll say that the United States Supreme Court's drastic and draconian edict to overturn Roe betrayed its guiding principles and exacted a terrible price on its legitimacy. Only 25% of Americans say that they have confidence in this Supreme Court, and that was before the court overturned Roe. So to put it simply, this court is in a major crisis. Professor Murray, isn't it true that the Dobbs decision, which snuffed out the reproductive freedom of women and put politicians and state legislatures in control of women's bodily autonomy, operates to relegate those women to second-class status? And if you believe that, why?
Thank you, Representative Johnson. It is true that the Dobbs opinion in withdrawing this fundamental right from women reduces them to second-class citizenship. The court acknowledged in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the 1992 decision that reaffirms the right to an abortion recognized in Roe, that the right to control one's reproductive capacity is essential to women's equality as equal citizens. And again, taking this right away limits the ability of women to control their destinies. It is a right that was recognized in the 14th Amendment, the control over procreation, which had been denied enslaved women. It was recognized in the 14th Amendment, and it has now been withdrawn by this court.
Thank you. And it's a fact, isn't it, that the majority's reasoning in Dobbs, really the dissent or the concurring opinion of Justice Thomas implicates a plethora of other rights recognized under the 14th Amendment, liberty and privacy guarantees. It implicates, or it indicates, or it tells us that the court, that those rights are in jeopardy, that Justice Thomas cited in his concurring opinion. Even the right against forced sterilization is found in Skinner versus Oklahoma. Would you agree?
Yes, that is exactly right. Justice Thomas's concurrence invites challenges to the long line of substantive due process cases, which begin in 1923 with Meyer versus Nebraska's recognition of the right of parental autonomy and go all the way forward to 2015's Obergefell versus Hodges, which recognizes same-sex marriage.
And those rights include those 14th Amendment due process, privacy and liberty guarantees implicate the decision in Loving versus Virginia. Would you explain that, and would you give me some explanation of why Justice Thomas would exclude court review of that due process right in his concurrent opinion?
Well, I agree it is a curious omission. The right to marry the person of one's choice, as the court recognized in 1967's Loving versus Virginia, is part of the essential civil rights of man. The court said that in its decision. It also decides the decision on equality grounds, noting that Virginia's Racial Integrity Act of 1927 proceeded from an interest in enshrining white supremacy. So it struck it down on both equal protection grounds, but also noted that there were significant due process concerns because marriage is a fundamental right. So I am confused as to why it was not included in Justice Thomas's long laundry list of rights to be overturned, but it surely would be there.
Well, could it be that he himself enjoys that right conferred under Loving?
Well, it would not be the first time that someone offered freedom for me, but not for thee.
That's pretty hypocritical. Professor Murray, what threat does the Dobbs decision pose to access to contraception and other reproductive health care?
I think the threat to contraception is quite imminent. In footnote 41 of the Dobbs opinion, the court attempts to link the right to contraception to eugenics and racial genocide. I think there's no reason to include that in this opinion, given the other reasons the court has for overruling Roe versus Wade. So I speculate that the reason that very curious footnote is included is to seed the ground for associating the right to contraception with racial injustice so that it may be struck down in the future.
Well, I thank you and I thank the witnesses for their testimony and their time today. And with that, I yield back.